Okay, here we are on the windward side of Oahu. There's a reason why they call it the windward side. As you can see, the trade winds are really honking today. We're just off Makapuu, which is the kind of the southernmost part of the windward side, and we're going to be making our way up the coast today to talk about the pros and cons of living in Windward Oahu. Okay, here we are still in Waimanalo, and you can hear it's very windy. I don't have a mic on, but one of the things people do love about the windward side are the beautiful white sandy beaches and deep blue ocean. And as we continue up the coast here on the windward side, you'll see there's typically an outer or barrier reef. So the waves don't normally get too big close to the shore. They typically break further out, making for a little bit calmer swimming conditions. However, always gotta consult, make sure you're a good swimmer if you're jumping in the ocean here. You also will get a lot more Portuguese man-o-war and jellyfish that do blow aside. But yeah, this is going to be a typical trade wind, a little bit higher trade wind than normal morning. One of the great things about the windward side we'll point out along the way is the great, beautiful backdrop of the Kailua Mountains. Okay, we just came from Waimanalo, and here we are in Kailua on the backdrop. Kailua is a great area to live in. What I've got behind me is we've got Kailua Bluffs and Keolu Hills, Enchanted Lake, the lake behind me, and about a dozen other neighborhoods behind me in Kailua. However, one of the catches about the windward side is the clouds kind of roll in. We did just come from Waimanalo, and I was there, oh gosh, just no more than an hour ago. I had to stop in Waimanalo to check out a listing of mine. But what happens throughout the day is the clouds tend to roll in. So the windward side of Oahu is going to be a lot cloudier than, say, the leeward side of the island. And it's also going to get a lot more rain. Hence, you have these beautiful green mountains behind me, like on the Ko'olaus and Mount Olomana. Let's continue on. Okay, here we are further up the coast. It's still kind of a windy trade wind day, and we're at Haia State Park. But this gives you a great perspective of Kaneohe. In the background, you got an old fish pond here, and then across the bay behind me, you've got Lilipuna Point, and there have some condos there. But all throughout Kaneohe, you've got a number of great neighborhoods. And I always say we kind of breezed over Kailua, but a lot of the best places were taken first. So the windward side of the Oahu does have some older construction, like Honolulu, in the sense that people wanted to live along this beautiful coastline. And what I will point out is, back there you've got Kaneohe Marine Base, and then just right up the road here, we'll kind of see where you see these structures there. You do have Windward Mall. We breezed over the retail, which they have in Kailua town. Kailua's got a lot of great retail, former property that was owned by Kaneohe Ranch. And here in Kaneohe, you've got several malls, the biggest of which is Windward Mall, which is a gigantic indoor mall. Kind of think of the bigger malls on the mainland, but it's very convenient for those that are living on this side of the island and or stationed at Kaneohe Marine Base. So I hope that helps, and we'll continue up the coast. Okay, there's a reason once again why they call this the windward side of the island. I'm not sugarcoating it today because the trade winds are blowing pretty good, and there are beautiful sunny days out here. We do have some blue in the skies, but if you look back at Kaneohe Bay, you see a bunch of rain clouds there, but that's also what keeps the island so green and tropical along the windward side. You got some remnants of the Ko'olau Mountains behind me, and here we are right at Kula Beach Park, and Kula Ranch is directly behind me here. There's a lot of really cool movies that have been filmed there. It's obviously got put in the map for Jurassic Park. And then just right around the corner here, near the fish pond, they did 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. And you've got Chinaman's Hat right out the back here. And we kind of breezed over Kaneohe Bay, but as you can see, the wind is blowing today. One of the cool things about living on the windward side of Oahu is a great place to go sailing. A little bit closer to Kailua, you've got Kaneohe Yacht Club, and then there are some facilities to take boats out of from the Marine Base if you have that eligibility. And then last but not least, there are little slopes and places along the coast here in Kaneohe if you have a boat and want to launch it out the back. We're going to start to talk a little more real estate here shortly. If you can hear me, I further up the coast, which we're going to continue to do here behind me. We're going to drive up the coast, and as you get further up the coast, you'll continue to get, prices continue to drop. You get more bang for your buck, no pun intended, but you can start to get something on the water in the mid 1 million to 2 range. So it's a lot more affordable because it's a little bit more rural and it's a little bit further to drive. Stand by, and we're going to continue more at our next stop, which is Kaaawa. Okay, now we're on the beach in Kaaawa, and Kaaawa is just right up the coast from Kaneohe city per se. And technically Kaaawa is its own city when it comes to the post. It's got its own zip code and post office, so when you get mail here it says Kaaawa. Try to say that fast 3 times. Kaaawa, Kaaawa, Kaaawa. But in any event, this is the next stop along the Windward Coast. It's got its own residential community, also a beautiful backdrop. Most of the real estate here is going to be set either just off the highway or along the road. And as we start to get further up on the coast here, we're going to talk more about what the cons are of living on the windward side. It's beautiful that you're living on the water, but the cons are that, if you can imagine, this is salt air that's traveling thousands of miles across the Pacific. So the salt air is going to have a lot more wear and tear on the improvements of your property, your vehicles, etc. That salt air will corrode things quicker as opposed to living on the leeward side of Oahu or in Honolulu. I used to be a firefighter, and I worked up the road here, and the fire station that I worked at in the late 90s was literally already falling apart, and it was built in the 1980s. And fast forward to today, they have a brand new fire station because that fire station didn't last that long and was only built in the 80s. So one of the cons we're talking about living on the Windward Coast is you're going to get a lot more wear and tear on your property. It's going to be a little bit more to maintain, but look at this. This is hard to beat. Okay, I just decided to stop just further up the street. Another con we're going to talk about right now of living on the windward side is it is a 1-lane highway. So if there's any type of construction or accident, the road's going to back up. So that's something you want to be prepared for living on the Windward Coast. As you can see, they've got some construction going on right here in Kaaawa. Right around the corner here is the Kaaawa Fire Station. Right here directly behind me is Swansea Beach Park. It's a beautiful beach park. They do have basketball hoops here on the water, as well as a little playground for the kids. Now, just let me share with you, having been a firefighter on this coast, you can see the ocean out there. It does get a little bit rough. And what happens here, it's even though the waves are breaking way out there, there's a current through here that really rips hard. There's been a lot of water rescues along this coast. I've been involved in some, and then, there's a tragedy that happened out here during COVID with some kids that got in over their heads on a kayak. So even though the water looks calm on the inside, there is an current that kind of rips through here. So you just really want to be careful on this part of the island, in particular off Kaaawa, because of the currents. And then we'll just be right around the corner here in a second. We'll check out Kahana Bay. Okay, here we are at Kahana Bay, which is right around the corner from Kaaawa. It's a beautiful state beach park. There's not a lot of real estate here. It definitely does not come for sale. There are some leased homes back in the valley, but once we get around the corner here, we'll be at Punaluu, where we have a combination of both fee simple and leasehold properties along the water. Okay, now we're around the corner. Kahana Bay is back over there, and there we have some homes that are along the water in Punaluu. And those are actually leasehold properties. A lot of them are owned by Kamehameha schools. So they're long-term land leases. Over across the road, this is something you want to be aware of when you're looking at property online on the Windward Coast. And sometimes you'll see something marked as oceanfront, quote unquote, but it's literally got a highway between it. So see these homes behind me? I'm not saying these particular homes are. However, over the years I've seen in MLS where they call these homes oceanfront, but there's like literally a highway you have to cross to get to the beach. You still have this beautiful view behind me, so that's definitely one of the pros. But one way you can kind of keep in mind is you're driving along Kamehameha Highway, all the odd numbers are going to be along the ocean, and all the even numbers are going to be on the Mauka side or mountain side of the road. So keep that in mind, because if you see something that they're calling oceanfront, it's not necessarily always oceanfront, so just keep in mind. Another thing, you'll see some scaffolding going on this house right here behind me. Like I said, there is more wear and tear for homes along the Windward Coast. Okay, now we're in Punaluu. There's a few things I want to discuss while we're here. I've got Pats at Punaluu directly behind me, and outside the wind, if you listen, you hear the jackhammering going on right now. They're doing a lot of spalling work there, because that's what we talked about earlier, is living on the Windward Coast, you're going to get more wear and tear. So by living on the ocean, they're having to redo all the rebar on the building and repainting it. But once they're done, it's going to be an incredible product, and it's hard to beat this lifestyle. So between here, Pats at Punaluu and Laie, they're definitely two of the least expensive oceanfront condo options if you want to buy on the ocean on Oahu outside of Makapuu. These are going to be the two best deals going. A couple other things I want to talk about while we're here in Punaluu. Punaluu is a MLS neighborhood that falls within the city of Hauula. So Hauula is its own city and zip code, just like Kaaawa. It's kind of an isolated town off Kamehameha Highway. But Punaluu is where we're at here within Hauula. And I'd love to tell you a funny story here. I'm going to flip the camera around here in a second. Okay, there was one day I was working at the Hauula fire station, which is right up the road here. It's station number 15 for HFD. And it was Christmas morning, and I got called into I should say the team got called into a rescue call. There was a man in distress swimming out here. It was called in from his wife that was frantic on the beach here at Pats at Punaluu. And as we talked about earlier, you have this barrier reef which is on the outside. So on the inside here, it's pretty well protected. Up the coast, I said be very careful at Kaaawa. But so we came out of the fire station. This is Christmas morning over 20 years ago, and we're blazing down the highway. I jump out of the truck in front of this building, put on my fins, and the wife is in hysterics on the beach because her husband is face up, straight outside there. So we start yelling and screaming. I put my mask and snorkel and fins on and start treading out to he's about halfway out to that surf. And then they teach us in your training to say, hey, are you okay? Because you don't want the person trying to rescue to drown you. So he's like face up, facing the sky the whole time, and all of a sudden he just kind of stands up and looks at us, and he's like confused, like, why are we coming out there? And I'm laughing because I had no clue. I didn't grow up on this coast. I didn't realize how shallow that was out there. Obviously, if you're not a good swimmer, be very careful. But he literally stood up to his waist in the ocean, and I think he had a few cocktails that day. But it was a funny story I love to tell. I tell clients when I'm showing property out here, but I thought that's a good takeaway. So even though you've got all this ocean between here and that reef, in theory you could drown, but it is pretty shallow along the way out there. But just obviously use your good judgment to be safe. Okay, before I wrap up here in Punaluu, I just want to point out one more thing. Here's another perspective of Pats at Punaluu. But take a look behind me. See how dark the sky is getting? It's only 2:15 p.m. So another pro and con of living on the Windward Coast of Oahu is you're going to get a beautiful sun and sunrise off the coast in the morning. However, it's going to tend to get a little bit darker as the day goes on. We're only at 2 o'clock, and look at the clouds in the sky right now. So that sun is going to set behind the Kailua mountain range, so it gets darker a lot quicker here on the Windward Coast. But once again, the perk of living on this side is you wake up to the morning sun in the morning. Okay, now we're in Hauula, which we were earlier in Punaluu, but to take a look back along the coast there, that'll give you an idea of some of the single-family homes along the coast in Hauula. It's windy. Okay, now we are to recap our pros and cons of the Windward Coast of Oahu. I'm sitting at a park bench here in Hauula. I got fond memories from some good friends and clients of mine that I helped them buy and sell a place here in Hauula, like 20 years ago. It's kind of a sleeper of a neighborhood, but what I'm going to do right now is share with you some quick little tidbits of local knowledge versus local realtor knowledge. So we started this off by talking about the pros and cons of living on the windward coast of Oahu, or the windward side of Oahu. And for all the locals that live here on the island, we basically refer to the windward side starting in Waimanalo, where we started this video, and it's going to run all the way up to the point, you know, at Laie and Kahuku, which is right behind me here. And I'll zoom in on that in a sec. Yeah, as you continue up Kamehameha Highway, you're going to continue up the coast. It's a cloudy day today, but you're going to see at the point out there where all those waves are crashing, that's Laie Point. And that's probably the end of what's considered the windward side of Oahu, or technically the northern point of Oahu. You get around to Turtle Bay and Kuilima and Kahuku, but so once you wrap that point, it's Naupaka Street there in Laie, that's kind of the tip point of what most people refer to as the windward coast. It could arguably be said that, you know, once you get up to Turtle Bay or Kahuku, that northernmost point of the island of Oahu, that could be the tipping point, because then the wind turns at that point and you're now in the lead. But for locals, this coastline starting in Waimanalo would be considered the windward coast. However, from a real estate perspective, it's a little bit different. So along that entire coastline, there's three major regions of the MLS on Oahu. The first off is going to be Kailua, where we started, which encompasses Waimanalo. So Kailua and all of its neighborhoods and homes and condos and land and all that, that's Kailua. And then you've got Kaneohe, which is the bulk of this coastline. When HBR reports on the stats, or I report on the stats from HBR every month, we refer to the real estate along the windward coast, and that's basically the Kaneohe region of our MLS. But keep in mind, within the Kaneohe region, that includes entire cities, like these small towns we just passed through, like Kaaawa and Hauula. And when you look at it, you're going to have a link to all these neighborhoods and regions in the comments below. However, just within Kaneohe, you got nearly 60 neighborhoods in MLS. So we just did a broad stroke of living along the windward coast. We kind of stuck to the coastline outside of Kailua. I feel like Kailua got cheated, but maybe we'll cover that on another day. But this will give you a perspective of the pros and cons of living in Kailua. You've got the sun out right now, but once again, you turn around, you got clouds behind me, and that sun's going to set behind those mountains and get, you're going to get some beautiful colors off that too. But just, every part of the island is going to have their pros and cons, and I just want to give you that recap. And if you have any questions about real estate here on Oahu, feel free to reach out and give us a shout.